So I wanted to go to art school. At the time, there was sort of a movement towards more of the digital side of things. That was a bit difficult for me in the art world because there was a push towards making art like that. And I didn't really know that side of the world yet. Super young, just a kid, really. I think I kind of got a bit lost for a while. I just didn't really know if my art had value. I started sort of doubting what I was doing. I was just wondering like where I fit and how it all, like how I fit into the whole art world.
Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 157. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Before we get into it today, if you like this one, which I know you will, or any other ones, do me a favor and please subscribe to this thing or leave a comment. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to get more exposure around the show. Today's guest, this is like part two. We had I had the pleasure of interviewing this wonderful person in October, November last year. And it was like... it was a shorter version of what this is. So it was a really cool event. And I'm pumped to get you on the show. So please name and who you are.
My name is Amy Dreyer, and I'm an artist in Calgary.
So this little event that you and I were at, which was fun when we met. We were just talking about it off camera, but like when we first met and you're like, so how's this going to go? I'm like, let's just wing it. and I can see your trepidation of like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand this guy.
Yes, I definitely like to prepare.
Yeah.
So.
And so this event we were at was really cool down at Masters. With Ryan. Ryan put it on. You were kind of launching your show. It was really cool to see because I'd never been in a gallery atmosphere before like that.
Yeah.
But to see all the people that turned out.
Yeah.
Like, and for me, it was interesting just like my little bubble of artists that I know. Like Bonnie was there, Billy Ray was there, Amy was there, Jeremy, who I met for the first time. So it was really cool seeing all these people that came out to support you.
Yeah.
Which... It's a small world, isn't it? The art world.
It is a small world, yes. Yeah, definitely. It was such a good show of people. And I mean, you obviously know a lot of artists and sports people and people in this community. So they just, they definitely came out to, we come out for each other and, show up. So.
Was it surprising though? Like, and for me, I was.
Well, it's always a little bit anxiety provoking to sort of, because you don't know if people will come. I mean, I think that's just a bit of a fear as, standing alone and being at your show.
Yeah, you and me.
Being there. Yeah, you and me just chatting with Ryan. So there's kind of that, unpredictable element to it, so.
Well, thanks for doing this. This will be fun. I was
Thank you.
Which was like, after our little like version one, I wasn't surprised that you wanted to jump into this one, but I was excited because I think we just scratched the surface when we first sat down. So you've seen one or two of these. So take this thing back as where you grew up, how you grew up, mom, dad, parents. We'll talk about school, jobs, and to where we are today.
Okay.
And so take it back as far as you want to go.
Yeah. So I was born in Calgary. My parents came here from the Maritimes, from Eastern Canada, and they drove across Canada in their station wagon or whatever it was. And I was born here a couple years later. And in the Grace Hospital. Grew up here. My childhood memories are here. I feel like when I walk around, I see kind of ghosts of myself in different parts of the city. I see myself walking home from school, learning to roller skate, like playing soccer in the park at night with my friends. And I feel like all my years are here in the city.
Why'd your mom and dad come here? Do you know?
They came here for work. So my dad, my parents were in their, I guess, probably early 20s. And they went to school out east, but then my dad wasn't able to find work. So then he initially got a job at the university, and then he got into the oil and gas industry. Into geology here. So, so they came west, and they basically packed up everything they owned in their little car and came and drove across Canada.
Which is kind of crazy, right? Like,
it's just so
I'm like a
crazy.
homebody.
I know.
To do that would just...
They left everything, and they didn't, like, back then there was no social media. They didn't, they didn't know anyone here. So they just started basically a new life out here. My mom's family, they never left the Maritimes. They always stayed there. My dad's family kind of moved across Canada. So they kind of moved around, but my mom's family never left. And so we always went back during the summers to visit them and kind of get to know the, extended family and stuff. But definitely home is here. Yeah, so.
When you were growing up, like elementary-ish, you kind of touched on having these like ghost memories, but what'd your childhood look like around Calgary? What were you into?
Well, I had a lot of energy, and I think that I think my parents realized they had to channel it and I had to channel it into something. So I was pretty athletic. I was into, initially I thought that I wanted to go into ballet, but then it was too regimented for me. And so they put me into soccer. And so there was lots of running. I could just like take that energy and just run. I always played on the wing. And anyway, I loved soccer. And I loved art. So those are my favorite things that I was really into as a kid.
Where's that energy? Like when you say you have this right now,
I think I've mellowed a little bit over the years. Like I actually come across, I think, as quite calm. But I have like before this interview, I was just like pacing back and forth and just like waiting. And it's like kind of like a racehorse waits for a race, like just like the anticipation of something. And then taking that energy and then just focusing it on something, on something like a sport or like my art. So that was something. I actually listened to your interview with Sheila, and she was talking about the same thing, like being able to take all this energy and focus it. And I was the same, that I was able to sort of focus it in and do something for a long period of time, like art.
How'd the interest in art start so early? What was your early memories of it?
Like my mom used to buy these rolls of newsprint. We lived in a duplex with this long hallway, and she'd buy these rolls of newspaper and then roll them down the hallway. And my sister and I would draw on the newspaper, on the newsprint for hours. And I think that was something that she was like, okay, we have to have them do something. and I just, I think I really just love doing that. I love telling stories. And so I would draw these characters and sort of tell stories about the bunny and what he was doing. And she would also put us in a room with a recorder, and we would tell stories. My sister was more quiet, so she would just be like, hi. But I would just talk about different things and my ideas. And I think there was a connection for me between those stories and the art, the making of the art. Was like a storytelling.
That's a unique experience.
Yeah, so I think, my parents were really creative, and my mom's very creative and was looking for unique things for us to do or creative ways to raise us. So, yeah.
Younger sister?
Younger sister, yeah.
What I'm wondering is, it's always interesting when someone like you gravitates towards that, like these creative ideas, and then your siblings like, it's not.
Yeah,
it's so interesting that you come from the same place.
Yeah.
And then you just gravitate towards different things.
Yeah, she was more. I think she was more quiet in the sort of the storytelling area. Like we would sit in the room and I would be like, Christina, say something. She'd be like, hi. But then, yeah, I don't know. She now loves, like, she has a group of friends that she's grown up with and stuff like that. And I like smaller groups. We were talking before the interview that I kind of like gravitate to smaller groups of people. And I actually was quite shy going through school, in high school and stuff. I played sports again, but they called me the quiet one when I was on the sports teams.
This is interesting. Were you, when you got on the field though, were you a different animal? Like,
yeah, I'm a pretty, like, I don't want to say like an like aggressive person, but
intense?
like I'm intense.
Yeah.
I'm intense. Like I would yell and run and like I like to run fast and I sprinted and I have a definitely competitive side. And so, yeah, I sometimes think of, like, I never played goalie, but I always sort of thought that I was kind of like a goalie. Like, goalies are kind of quiet and they're like intense, I often think. And they're, they're an important part of the team, but maybe they're a little bit of a quieter person on the team. But I wasn't a goalie, so I don't know. I just like love to run. I couldn't stand and wait. Like I couldn't wait. I just wouldn't be able to wait in the net for things to happen. But
it's interesting that scenario, right? Like off the field, you're quiet. And I was like very similar in the way I kind of operate in sport and outside of sport.
Yeah.
Like in social settings, probably pretty quiet, but I think it was because I was watching everything.
Yeah.
I was observing everything.
Yeah, that's it.
And then when I got it, when I became half good at something, it gave me this confidence. Yeah. And with that confidence comes this like, okay, whether you get louder, whether you move fast, whatever it is, there's like this confidence. And as you're saying this, I'm like, that's exactly how I felt about my experience.
Yeah.
Coming through junior high, was it still like sport and art, or what was?
Yeah, sport and art for sure. I always loved being in the art room. And I just, I looked forward to doing whatever project came up. I'm trying to think back on the projects in junior high.
It had your attention? Like you were just drawn to it? Like
I loved the art rooms. They often had big windows and lots of light. And you could just sit with your work and your colors and your crayons and your materials, tools, like just be surrounded by the stuff. And I just, even when I went into like exams, I'd always bring lots of stuff with me. Like that was the other side. I wasn't as good at science and math, and I would get really nervous before the exams, but I'd bring in all these collections of like pencils and like rocks and all these things to surround myself during the exam. So it kind of calmed me a bit.
No way.
Yeah, like I like the stuff. I'm sort of a maximalist, like a collector. Like I like things, and I like collecting rocks on the beach, and having pencil crayons, and I love the material, things of being in my studio, like all the brushes, and it's a beautiful.
It's interesting you found that out early. Like to actually show up at a test with, and to make yourself comfortable.
I know, I wasn't. I think I was like, not horror to the teachers, but they would be like, "Oh my God, look at that!
there she is,
that poor girl." Yeah.
In the art classes, were there like other kids that were that into art as you? Like, did you have a little community around art?
Yeah, I think so. I think I do remember in junior high some other good friends that we would make art together. And I did take classes outside of school too. And I had some friends in those classes. And actually, it was so cool to take classes from a real art, like an artist, a practicing artist.
Yeah.
And to sort of go down into the basement of their house in Kensington. And there was just so much art in the house. And we would go down there, and Stan Phelps was the teacher, and he would show us slides of, historical art. And I had never really seen historical art. And so he sort of helped me establish a language and a history and, a connection to artists who came before me. And then, of course, my friends were there and stuff too. So, but yeah, every Friday night in junior high and into high school, I would be down in that little basement studio drawing or painting. That's basically where I learned to paint, down there. Yeah. It was magical.
Yeah.
It's so magical.
Like you can, and as you're explaining it, you remember all the details and all that.
Yeah. Their house was full of art, and Stan and Carol just were sort of my initial sort of introduction into the, into the world of people who actually do art as their, livelihood and life.
Did you understand that in that moment? That there's actually people out there actually making it, like doing this as a thing, like a living?
Yeah, I guess I didn't totally understand it, but they seemed like they were just completely immersed in that world. And I think I felt the magic of, being surrounded by their art on the walls, and they knew about the history of art, and they knew about materials, and I just felt so comfortable there. And all the tables were covered in brown paper.
Amazing.
And so we could, kind of be messy and stuff like that. And then we'd have a show at the end of every sort of session with them. And so that was an introduction to having kind of a show. And my mom used to have us come into, when guests would come, she would be like, Amy, come present yourself. Oh my God, Mom, I'm in junior high. Like, please don't make me do this. But she'd have us like sort of talk about our work and what we were doing. And I think that practiced me a little bit at a young age to sort of present myself a bit. But yeah, I again was quite shy, so it was a bit of a. My mom would put us on the spot, basically.
Dance.
Oh, yeah. But anyways.
Do you know how you got connected to them? How'd your parents find them?
Stan and Carol. It was through another woman who was an artist, and they sort of recognized in me, the interest, the passion. Yeah. That I was really, just wanting to do it, wanting to do art all the time. And so a mutual friend told us about them. Yeah.
The wanting to do it all the time and the passion.
Yeah.
That's the kind of, people can have passions around something, but I think until they like think about it all the time, do it all the time, it's all the extra things.
Yeah.
Did your parents just see that and then just kind of help facilitate it and like move you down that path?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of both. Like I would get home from school and I would go downstairs to my room and have my desk ready for doing my posters or drawings, and and then they just saw that interest and definitely kind of got behind me in that. So I think they were very instrumental in sort of making it possible and kind of believing in that in me. Yeah. And I'm very fortunate for that, I think. Yeah.
Were you good at a young age? Like whatever good means.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, people would come over and like say, "Can you draw blah blah blah? Can you do a portrait of me?" And so because I was shy, it was a way of entering relationships and kind of getting to know people and connecting with people. And so I know people definitely, like my yearbook is like, "You're a great artist," and I don't want to like totally blow my own horn there, but people sort of saw that part of me. Yeah.
Coming into high school.
Yeah, so high school. So I went to Western down.
We did down the street here.
Yeah, down the street. I remember my dad and I actually went to the information session before beforehand, because it wasn't my designated school. Yep. And we went into the art room and it was just like, oh my God, I'm like, wow, this place is just amazing. High ceilings, like stuff everywhere. Like it's all that stuff. And the teacher, Mr. Fricklin, was really quirky and an artist himself. And I was like, "Dad, I really want to go to school here. Like, this is I think this is where I'm supposed to go. And so, yeah. And so I think I may have had to write a letter. I can't remember specifically how I got into the school because it was out of my area, out of my district or whatever. But yeah, I ended up there. So took the bus every day downtown.
It's different because I went to high school at Mary's.
Okay. Yeah, you're close by.
So the downtown high school thing was really interesting.
Yeah.
And it exposes you to a bunch of different things.
Yeah, totally.
Whether it's people or across from Western, there's obviously all the retail stuff. So either it's how to spend money or not spend money.
Yeah.
You know, it's busy. Like there's a lot of input when you're downtown.
Yeah, I loved it. I really liked, like the little cafes and, the buses coming and going and just that Western was like this old building in the middle of all of this kind of chaos of the downtown. And it was just it was fantastic there.
Was it art always, or was there sports still in the mix in high school?
Yeah, so my main interests were art, English, and those two for me kind of went hand in hand, like writing about art and storytelling, and then sports. And I played field hockey in high school. Yeah. I played ringette and then switched over to hockey, thinking maybe I could go to the Olympics. I love skating fast, running fast. I switched to from ringette to hockey in high school, and then I could never seem to carry the puck properly because I never really learned to carry it. So I was always like leaving it behind me. Because ringette, you just have your stick, you catch the ring and then you've got it and you're good to go. But ringette didn't end up being an Olympic sport, and I was like, I want to go to the Olympics. So I switched over, got into sort of a elite program through the university hockey program. Yeah. And and I played a lot of hockey, amazingly.
Once you figured out the puck.
I don't know. The puck situation was a bit difficult.
You could have flipped your stick over and just play defense.
Yeah. So
did the idea around the Olympics, was it enough of a idea that you were willing to chase it?
I played a lot and I did try out. I did some trying out, but I think that I just wasn't I wasn't able to sort of transfer all the skills, and it was a bit late for me to kind of get really good at hockey to the point that I could go. But I was pretty decent, and, not too bad.
And driven though, right? Like
driven,
that inner fire.
I wanted to compete at a high level of everything. Of all the things that I felt that I was skilled at. Yep. I wanted to do the best I could in those areas. And as well as soccer. Like when I was younger, there wasn't a girls' soccer team, so I just played with the boys' team. And and got a little bit of flack for that over the years, and then didn't want to switch. There was never a women's team that was quite as high level. Yeah. And so it was a bit of a difficult transition over for me. So
when you decide that you want to get after something, what has to happen? Is it just like, you need you need an experience that says, okay, I'm half good at this, I can chase this? Like what's your switch to get you on that path?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because there's confidence.
There's like a drive or a longing to master something, to master a skill, to do the best I can at whatever it is that I love. And to spend that time, like I don't do as many sports now because I don't have as much time, but my main goal is to keep up my art and to spend all those hours mastering it and keeping it the best it can be, And so I'm willing to put in whatever time it takes to do that. Was that your question?
Yeah, it was.
I kind of forgot.
No, but it's like, what I find interesting is like, when you allocate energy to master something, like what is it that, it's like,
what is it that
the art kind of makes sense. You're like, I want to, this is my thing. But as you're talking about these sports, it's soccer, it's field hockey, it's hockey, and you're just like, I want to get really good at this.
Yeah.
But I think, do you think you have to have a decent foundation before you start that chase?
I did a decent foundation, like be decently good at the thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Or you're just blind? You're like, no, I'm going to
yeah,
do
I
this.
think it's a mix. Like, I think if you're too good at something right away, that sometimes you're not willing to work at it. So if young kids are really good at a skill right off the get-go, then sometimes they don't have the determination to work at the thing.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, I remember going and starting ringette, and I wasn't very good at it at the beginning. But I wanted to be good at it, and I wanted to keep up, and so I was willing to, stay extra long, or, talk to the coach or whatever to make that possible. And I got the most improved or whatever, right? So I think sometimes when you're not as good at the thing, then maybe you have that desire to be better, I wouldn't say that's totally the case with my art, because I was always I was also always kind of decent at it.
Yeah.
And then I would just kind of kept going down that path.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. My daughter's a little bit delayed with her walking and stuff and her movements, but she's really determined and she wants to do it. And so, she's always climbing the stairs and she's like she tries. And I think that's the most important thing, is the desire and the commitment to it. So for me, it's the commitment for sure.
Coming out of high school, what had your interest? Were you working by this time, or what was your objective after high school?
Yeah, so I wanted to go to art school. So I had applied for what used to be called ACAD, U of A or whatever it's called now. I don't know.
It's always ACAD.
It's always ACAD to me.
Yeah.
So I applied to go to school there, and I went right into art college after school. And at the time, there was sort of a movement towards more of the digital side of things. Like email was just becoming a thing, the internet, sort of video. And so there was a little bit of a push towards that.
Yeah.
And I think that that was a bit difficult for me in the art world, because there was a push towards making art like that.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to, and quite contemporary and stuff. And I didn't really know that side of the world yet. Super young, just a kid, really. And so, and just starting that world, I think I kind of got a bit lost for a while. And I just didn't really know if my art had value. I started sort of doubting what I was doing. And I was just wondering where I fit and how it all, how I fit into the whole art world. Painting is dead. It was kind of the,
Because digital is here.
Yeah. And there was sort of a movement away from the physical painting process. So that was definitely a bit shocking to me.
Yeah.
And because I was so young, I just didn't really know my direction. So I kind of lost my way for a little while. And then I wanted to go to Scotland.
Based on
Just in I think I went to a presentation and one of the artists had traveled abroad. And I was like, oh, wow, I could travel abroad and go to school somewhere else, just see what the world is about. I've never really left Calgary. And so, so I looked into actually going to Ireland first. And there were no art schools there that I could find. So I'm like, well, Scotland's close enough. It's kind of the same, not knowing very much about it. And so I applied for school in Glasgow. The Glasgow School of Art. And ended up going there. I lived there for 6 months, and someone came here. It was an exchange.
Cool.
Yeah. And that was the first time I was away from home. So it was pretty, I don't know how my parents let me go. I was so naive and young. I see pictures of myself now and I'm like, how did they let me go? I was just a baby, traveling away. And I remember flying away on that trip. And I was wearing this pink jacket. I had really short hair and this little scarf. And I had a glass of wine on the plane. And I'm like, oh, I'm all grown up now. I'm going abroad. And so, yeah. And so I went there for 6 months, and it really just opened up my eyes, like to, international meeting to other artists from all over the world, rich tradition of painting. So that's kind of what I wanted to study, sort of the history of painting. And that made me feel like, okay, I can still paint, and that's okay. And so, so I did. And I lived there, for 6 months.
That feeling at ACAD where you're just like a little lost.
Yeah.
As a creative, that's a tough spot to be, isn't it?
It was really hard when I was younger. And I think when you're experiencing like self-doubt and sort of like wondering, if you've gone the wrong way in your life. And there were a few teachers there that really helped me during that time. Bev Tosh is one of them. I remember her kind of taking me into her office, and I don't know what she said, but I just was like, okay, I'm okay. I'm a good person still. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm a bit lost, but she still thinks I'm a good artist, and so I still have like a skill here. So it's just a different, like, it was very contemporary. In terms of sort of what there were a lot of teachers were doing and stuff like that. And so.
I feel like when you're exposed to like a whole bunch of creatives, good, it's like a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're like, oh my God, that person's amazing.
Yeah.
Who's going to ever like what I do?
Yeah, well, that's it. Like,
at a
you
young
sort
age.
of like lose your, I just kind of like lost my way for a little bit and didn't know where I fit in the whole thing, and was so quiet that I was like, I don't know if this is for me, but I don't really know what else I'm going to do. Maybe I can play soccer professionally. So then going to Scotland was really a amazing experience, and kind of reestablished my direction a bit.
And I gave you the confidence of, okay, this is what I'm going to, this is what I do.
Yeah, and then I moved again. Like I moved again to Eastern Canada to finish at Mount Allison, which is a small liberal arts university, and that's where my parents went to school. So I kind of connected in with some of their history too. So that was cool.
Where was that? Where's that school?
That's in Sackville, New Brunswick. Yeah. So it was amazing when I arrived. There was a teacher that knew my parents when they were younger, and I was like, wow, you knew them when they were 20? Like they were 20 once? Really? And he was like, oh yeah, you look just like your mom. And, so there was kind of this connecting into some of my history. So that was pretty cool too. Because out here we were very much like a family of four, my parents, my sister and I. But back there was some connections to sort of my past and yeah.
You said the word a couple of times, a storytelling piece. Did you know like those connections? Like were you looking for them, or did they just kind of show up and you're like, this feels right?
Oh, like the connections to the people there?
At school, yeah. Like
I didn't know that there would be a teacher that had known them. So that was really surprising to me, and almost like a bit shocking to think, oh yeah, they were, here before me. But it gave me this sense of, I don't know, something like maybe a stability.
Yeah.
And, like a cyclical feeling, like, okay, this is, I'm repeating a pattern.
Right.
I'm back at the school that my parents went to. And there's kind of like an interesting idea that they were here before me, and things are as they should be, It was interesting that way. And I guess I had this feeling of like, kind of a faith in the process at that point.
Which is like, it's a very like great concept, right?
Yeah.
To trust that and like feel it.
Yeah. And it was, and then people say, oh, like, what are you going to do with that degree? Like a Bachelor of, Fine Arts. And I won't say what they also called it, but it was like, very not so complimentary. But I was like, I'm going to be an artist. Like, that's what I'm going to do.
And you could say that with like conviction, like that was going to be,
Yeah, and I think everyone was like talking to my parents, like, I think you should talk to her about what that means. And so I was, kind of naive for sure, but I did believe in that possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think the Was it the talent and the work ethic that made you believe that could be real?
Yeah, I don't know. I just imagined myself in that position. I was willing to do whatever it took to do it.
Yeah.
To put in the hours, to put in the time, to practice, to show up, and to believe in the possibility of it. Always. Yeah.
Were you working at all during all this?
Yeah, I did get a job at Inglewood Art Supplies every Saturday. So I worked at the art supply store, and that kind of stabilized me a little bit because, being an artist is such an unpredictable job that every Saturday I was always at the store. I was, amongst the supplies, and I knew the supplies, and I met people, and I connected with people. So I always had that kind of alongside my work. So
the thing I find fascinating about creatives is like it's so vague, what the outcome, the potential, what the potential outcome might be.
Yeah, I know. Well, I did this talk years ago at the university, and I was on a board or something there, and young people were coming to see what it would be like to be an artist, and then they'd go to some other talk and see how to become a doctor or how to become a lawyer, whatever. And to become a doctor, you do this A, B, C, you pass this exam, you do this thing, and then you're, can practice as a doctor. But to be an artist, it's like, there isn't that. There isn't like A, B, C, and then you are an artist. Like it's like, a lot of people said, we came to your talk because it's so mysterious, like how you become what you are. And it's so entwined with your life, I think. Like it's part of your journey, and you make your own path. Like you don't really follow the ABC to be a doctor. That's all established within a system, but you're kind of making your own system. And that's that's why it's so scary. And it's so mysterious. And you're like, oh my God, I don't want my kids to do that. It's so scary for them. What if it doesn't work, So, but then, my dad, I would call him. I think I said this during our other talk as well. Like when I was first kind of practicing and going to my studio, I would call him and I'm like, Dad, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm kind of like, I'm here by myself all day long trying to figure out what I'm doing. And he's like, but you're doing it. And you can do this. So, I mean, thank God for that voice, and then he just helped me keep going.
You like explain that perfectly. I was like, if I,
all good.
It was like so perfect. What caught my attention though was, as a creative, you're like, well, I don't know what's next. And there's always like this, it's very gray, right? You don't know what the outcome's going to be. You don't know like whether that's financially or whatever, who's going to want the thing. Like,
totally.
Am I doing this right? Am I, all the things. But I think what's fascinating is that there's a bunch of characters out there that are in a career that have either hit their plateau, they're like manager or senior manager, and they're trying to get to that next level. And they're thinking the exact same thing that creatives are thinking, which I find very interesting. So I think the creative journey is just, it's just talked about more, like the what if and maybe and all this gray space. But I do think the traditional professionals also can feel lost too.
Yeah, that's interesting. You've heard more people's stories than me that way. But
and me living in that corporate environment for a while, and just like I thought the same thing. Like, what's next? Am I doing the right thing? Like, where's this gonna go? Am I good at this thing? Like, all the same questions.
Yeah,
which is
fair.
fascinating. When you graduated, did you have an idea what was like? What like when you got your degree? Did you know it was going to be?
Yeah.
X?
Well, I got a degree in fine art and I minored in English and I think Caribbean studies, and so and then like I graduated and I'm like, okay, I have to go home. Like this is. Like I love Eastern Canada, I love the ocean and stuff, but this isn't home. Like I need to get home. And so I came back west and I moved back in with my parents because I wasn't really financially, able to kind of sustain life yet. And then I was like, what do I have to do to get this started? Like, how do I start? And I'm like, okay, I think what I need to do is I need to carve out a space. I need the space to create in. I can't do it in my parents' house. I'm too messy. I need my own space. And so I called an old teacher of mine. I think I called Stan Phelps, who was the one that I initially mentioned when I was taking that class down in the basement. Yeah.
I'm with you.
So I called Stan, and then he connected me to another man named Bob Pierce. And then Bob had a studio downtown, and then I went and met him. And he showed me some studios, and I was like, "Yep, this is where I'm gonna carve out my space to paint." So I got a little studio in this old building, pretty small. Started going there every day, and then a woman moved out. She was going back to school, down the hall, and I'm like, "That's my space, right in there." And so we went and looked at it, talked to the guy who rents out the spaces. And it was fantastic. My family came in, we cleaned it up, we mopped the floor, and it was just this big empty space with like brick walls and high ceilings and kind of like dust in the air, big windows, north-facing windows. I'm still there now. 20 years later.
No way.
Yeah. So I got that space in 2002. And and I remember kind of like we all went in, my parents and my sister and I went in and cleaned it up and sat and had like lunch on the floor or something. And then that summer I brought some friends in and we played like Jeff Buckley as loud as we could in there. And it was like an empty space. It was just, that was the beginning to kind of carve out that space. It was the beginning of the whole process.
Why was it so important to have that space? What was it? Why did you need that? Like, and for me, I told you off camera what we're about to do, right?
I just felt like, I don't know, what comes to mind is like Virginia Woolf talking about, having a room of one's own, having a space of one's own, and how important that is for creative practice to become who you're supposed to be. I needed a space to kind of create in and walk around, play my music, to, create, to draw, to make a mess. And, to kind of carve out that space for my creative self. I don't know why. It's just felt like that instinctively I needed that for my work. And then from that, I could kind of, have that creative process in that place and then move it out into the world from there. So, yeah.
Fascinating.
It's so weird. It's really, I think the whole practice of art is very mysterious.
For sure.
Yeah.
When you said that the first time, I was like, that's a great way to put it.
It's very mysterious and it's very beautiful and gritty and hard sometimes too.
So you get the space. Can make it your own. What starts to happen?
Yeah, so the years are going by. And my next goal was to kind of show the work. So like the work came out of kind of that private place and the creative space, but I felt like I had to get it out and have it seen. Like it has to be seen to make it work. And so it was just a matter of like getting the paintings into places, coffee houses and, have a studio show. I had a show in the studio and people all came and that was really cool.
Super cool.
And so that was all kind of pre-gallery. I didn't show in any galleries yet. And I started my own business as an entrepreneur called Fragments of Soul. And so I just did it myself. I would hang the show. I would do all the sort of promotional, things and get the word out, tell my parents' friends, whatever. And so, and it was just a kind of like getting the work seen. And then I started kind of like, I'd like to show in galleries if possible. And so I ended up showing in a gallery in Eastern Canada for a little while. And that was the beginning of sort of having shows and stuff like that. And then I pounded the pavement in Montreal and showed them my work, and that didn't work out. I ended up not having, there just wasn't any kind of interest, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
They said that some galleries said I needed to be dead before they'd show my work. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you're killing me here. But so that was a really hard thing too. Like dealing with rejection is definitely part of the whole process,
Yeah.
especially early on.
Yeah.
Rejection letters are all, they pile up. You try to do all these things, and I kept them all just as to sort of show myself that I kept on going, even regardless of what, getting rejected or whatever. And I think that's just kind of like part of the process.
Yep.
Especially when you're younger.
For sure.
Yeah.
When you decide to start your business, and then you're the promoter, you're the artist, you're doing all the things.
Yeah.
Was it a natural thing for you to go down that path?
I think I have a practical entrepreneurial side. I liked to present the work. I was practiced at that a little bit from my childhood. So I definitely had a side, like kind of my clean side, I guess.
Yeah.
And so kind of getting dressed up or like, kind of presenting it.
Yeah.
And I liked both sides of it, I think my parents kind of helped me a little bit with the business side. I'd seek advice or from my dad and my mom. And I don't know if it was, I think it was kind of natural to go out and do it. And I was, like I said, willing to do whatever it took to kind of keep it going.
Yeah.
And I kind of came to love it. Like I had I still have a website, but like Fragments of Soul is kind of my baby. Like it was,
it's been around.
Yeah. So I kind of created that from nothing.
Yeah.
And now with showing in galleries, like they do more of the business than I do.
Yeah.
And so my main goal and my main thing is that I just keep painting.
Do the thing.
And then I ship out the work and stuff. And during COVID, I didn't see anybody. So I just do the paintings, give the work to the galleries, and that was it. That was weird. So because in the regular world, I still have shows and connect with people and still connect with people who are buying the work and meet them. And there's kind of like an interesting exchange between us. Like there's, they're buying something of mine and they're taking it into their world and they're connecting to it for whatever reason. Like it's connecting into their story. Yeah. So it starts with me, but it ends up going out to other people's lives and stories. And that's like the amazing part of it. Like it's just, And so during COVID, I didn't know what was happening. So that it was just like going out into a void a little bit. So I missed that.
There's no energy. Like you weren't getting anything back.
Yeah. It was just like I'd paint it and then it was gone. And like, hopefully I'd get a check back in the mail. But like no like personal exchange with, people and stuff. And like that's what life's all about, right? Yep. So
that fire that you have within you, when you get in the nose, when you're like willing to put in all the work to actually make this thing happen. Yeah. Is that where does that fire allow you to do this? Like, does it actually like give you the energy to like hear those
to
no's?
Keep going?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, there's got to be something that keeps you going.
Well, it's so interesting, like how you present yourself in this situation, meet at the gallery. Yeah. It's, I would have never guessed that there was this like thing, this like other side to you that drove it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. People often think like I'm quiet and maybe even a little anxious or nervous. And, but I think that I'm very brave, even in maybe a state of like sometimes being anxious about something, I always do it. And I want to do it. And I want to like follow through and show up and be committed to something, and live like that. Yeah. At the end of my life, I want to know that I always tried and gave it my all. So.
You get a bunch of no's.
Yeah.
I love that you still have them.
Yeah.
When did
somewhere thrown away in some drawer.
When did you start feeling like you were a true artist? Whatever that means. Like either you're starting getting paid for work whether you're in galleries. What was your kind of moment where you're like, I'm here and this is I can call myself an artist?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I always felt like I was an artist from when I was a kid.
Yep.
Like, I think I kind of didn't question that until university.
Yeah.
Then I kind of, like I said, I questioned whether I was a true artist at that point in my early 20s. And then once I went to Scotland, I was like, yeah, I think I fit in this. I fit in this whole world of artists. And so I think that there was only one point where I questioned it in my early 20s. And then everything else was like, yeah, this is my person or whatever.
Was there a moment when it switched from something to being an artist to being like, okay, now I'm operating at a different level of artistry? Like,
oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, once I started showing in galleries, I had some clout because other people kind of got behind me. And the galleries help you establish sort of your place in history, which is really weird. And kind of, to know that I'm part of like the history of artists now, within other people's, how they speak about you, and I'm represented by other people. And so that was kind of amazing, because prior to that, it was sort of me, saying like, I'm pretty good at this, like, keep coming and keep, looking at what I'm doing. And so I think I had other people sort of getting behind my work other than my family and friends and stuff. So that really was, that helped me establish sort of, my kind of long-term place. I'm considered a mid-career now.
Is that where you are?
Yeah. So I'm no longer like trying to establish like my name or whatever. So I'm kind of like in the middle of wherever, in the middle of wherever. In the middle of life. God. And things sort of shifted again when I had kids. When the kids came along, I had to kind of carve out a different space at that point in time. A studio at home in the garage, while still keeping the downtown studio. And I just had to sort of carve things out a little bit differently, because I wanted to also, be a mom to them and take my time with them and stuff like that. So that shifted again a little bit in recent years.
The creative community in Calgary, how does that fit in your world? Like, how does it, like,
I think that there's a really amazing community here. I think people are really entrepreneurial in this city. I think it's kind of like big skies, big possibilities. And they're really, I think they do show up for each other. I found, and there's a lot of artists here in this city. People, think, oh, Toronto, Vancouver. But I always at first I'm like, oh, I've got to go to Toronto or Vancouver or one of these big places, like, but I didn't really want to. Like, I think I'm definitely like a prairie girl. Like, I love the mountains and I love, walking on Nose Hill with the grass. And like, this just felt like home. I did live briefly in Toronto, to see if it was for me. And I remember taking the GO train to the end of the line. And then all these business people would get off the train and run through the parking lot to their cars to get out of the parking lot as fast as they could to keep driving. And I thought, this is not for me. Like, I can't live like this. Like, I'm living on the GO train. I'm staying on here until late at night. I'm getting home to my aunt and uncle's house. And it's just like, this isn't my life. Like, I can't live here. So I did go back to Calgary.
How long did you last out there?
Oh, a month. I was there for a show. So I was sort of like, I was like promoting the show. And then I thought maybe I could move here if I felt like it was for me. But I just, when I watched all the people running through the parking lot in their suits and stuff, I'm like, wow, this is something else. Like, it's just crazy. And people live on the trains. Like, they spend so much time on the trains. And they have good friends on the,
That's
but
the thing.
It's a whole other world.
That's funny. I haven't told my Toronto story. I lived there for 11 months.
Okay.
In like 2001-ish.
Okay.
And as soon as the plane landed, coming in Toronto, it landed. And I was like, what the fuck have I done?
Oh my God.
So I walked around Toronto.
Yeah.
My good friend Cam Walker lived there. That was the highlight. We went and checked out cool music, cool clubs. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Everything else, I was just like fish out of water. Everyone was rocking suits, running around downtown.
Yeah.
I had no money.
Yeah.
Walking everywhere. It was like, anyways, I came home.
Yeah. It just, this was home. And I felt like it could establish things in Calgary. I have more support, like family here and stuff. So I had sort of like, I felt like within that community, I was able to sort of get something going in a more substantial way. So
how do you manage operating in this gray space? How do you have the courage?
Yeah.
How are you okay to stay in this like mysterious place? What is it that allows you to stay in that space?
I don't know. I feel like it's...
You don't have the answer?
Oh my God, I don't know. It's a great answer. I just have faith in it, I guess. I feel like things are going to be okay. I think that I think that life's a mystery, and I think that I don't know. I feel like things move towards the good.
Yeah.
And I think that's something my husband said too. He said, I think that he thinks also that things move in towards the good, like the possibility of a good outcome. And I think that I think I believe in that most of the time.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's governed my life in some ways. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like I went for a walk in the middle of the night thinking that was okay. Like maybe I shouldn't have done that. Like, but when I was in university, I'm like, I'll be fine. I'll be all right. I'm just going to go for a walk in the snow just for, half an hour. I can't sleep. So, I don't know, like I do worry about my kids now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what was I thinking all these years just to think everything's going to be fine? The world does seem a bit scarier than when I was younger. But I still, even so, think that things are going to be okay. And so in that, I'm able to practice and keep going, I think.
Is it like that all the time, or do you have moments where you're like,
oh no?
Because and for me,
I have doubts. Like I have days where I still wonder like why I chose this path. Even now, like have established myself, and then I still think, God, like I could be, have a way more secure job and be like a lawyer or something. I don't know, maybe not a lawyer, but like
something, right?
Something, a counselor or something. But I don't know. I just keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, it's too late now to change it. I guess with the world economy, like I worry a little bit about that side of things. And, I have a practical side. I'm like, what if this, what if people stop buying art and just need to buy bananas or like food? So there's sort of always a bit of worry in the background, but what do? You just you just have to keep going with your life. And, if it comes to that and I have no money left, then I'll see when I get there, but for now things are going along, and I've sort of built it up enough that it's fairly decently established. But I mean, younger people, I think it is a bit of a scary world these days. You wonder what you'll do after you graduate and stuff. And my husband's first degree was in religious studies and philosophy. And when he finished, we were like, oh my God, what are you going to do?
I'm the artist here.
And so, like he had to have his own path that way and figure out what he wanted to do. And we were similar in that way. And I think we recognized that in each other.
The reason I asked you that was because I find like operating in the creative space myself. And I find where like trusting it, you like trust it, you can feel it, maybe you can see it. It's all kind of vague. And I think it works, especially when you start succeeding, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
The times when it doesn't work, though,
Yeah.
it's almost, for me, it's just acknowledging for what it is.
Yeah.
This is just a blip.
Yeah. Yeah.
This isn't a new direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like I'm not having 2 days in a row where I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm, you know,
Yeah.
is this actually the thing I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I've wrapped my head around, okay, this is just a moment in time.
Yeah.
And now there's a way that I can reset myself. And that's how I kind of manage those, like,
Yeah.
the dips in this gray area.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too about artists throughout history, like people who've done it before me. And that gives me stability for some reason. I'm like, okay, well, people live through, you know, some people live in like deep poverty as artists and they still do it. And, you know, there's something that like Emily Carr, she painted with like, I don't know, some kind of oil from your car. Like she just did whatever she could to create and had almost nothing.
Yeah.
And just kind of kept doing it regardless and found a way. And I find that to be beautiful, amazing. You know, Jackson Pollock painted with like wall paint that you'd paint your wall. And now that paint is falling off his canvases in the museums, which is also, I think, beautiful because it's still moving, you know. He always his painting. He was all about painting and the movement of painting and the process, and was always moving around. And so his paintings are still moving, and that's kind of amazing, you know. So I think of other artists that have come before me. You know, Frida Kahlo. She suffered a lot. She had all kinds of problems with her body and she painted as a way of transcending her physical problems. And it's just beautiful to kind of think of these people and be connected to them in some way and to know that they did these things and found a way. And so can I most of the time. You know, and I have people encouraging me to like, you know, saying like my husband, okay, I think you should go paint. You seem like your eyes are popping out. You've been in the house too long and, you know, you've been taking care of the kids for a while and you maybe need some time. And so I have a lot of support. So in that, I've been very fortunate. And I know that some artists, like they're kind of like pushing against the current with their families or other people. But I feel like I've been able to establish sort of like these people around me that carry me in some ways. Yeah.
Do you ever like reflect back and where you are right now? And are you surprised? Is this where you thought you'd be? Is it just all feel natural and you don't give much thought?
I think that this is where I was meant to be in my life. And I think if I was talking to my younger self, I'd be like, don't worry too much.
Like that
don't be so
ACAD
scared.
version of yourself.
Yeah, like you're just so full of anxiety and angst and longing and, you know, terror, really. And I think I would just sit with myself and say, like, you're going to be okay. It's going to be okay, you know. And I worry about my kids too. Like, I look at their life and I'm like, are their lives going to be okay? You know, how is it going to all turn out? Like, you know, and then I have to tell myself the same thing. Like, it's going to be okay. They're going to find their way. We'll just be there for them and meet them where they're at and help them along the way or whatever, right? So that's what I would do. I would sit with my younger self and be like, you know, you're going to be okay. You're going to find your way. It's going to, you know, roll out and be what it is. I don't know if that sounds totally weird and abstract, but I think that would have given me comfort back then.
Yep. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
Really cool. Like, obviously, the first time we met is a weird interaction because we're like in front of people talking. So it's like, it's weird. For a bunch of different reasons. But actually, what I found fascinating in this conversation was just like how you explain creativity and just like living in it.
Yeah.
It's very, I struggled with it. I struggled with it for a long time.
Sure.
So to hear, that's why I like getting artists on the show, just to hear them talk about it.
Sure.
Because I think there's lots of value in hearing that from artists. So thank you.
Thank you.
Also, thank you for this beautiful tile.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's really cool.
Yeah. That was one of the pieces that was in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the central piece.
Is that the one like hanging on the, like when you walked in the
The
gallery?
big wall.
Is the big one? Yeah.
Yeah, the big wall, yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, so I make those usually every Christmas, but I've made some recently as well. So, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I end the show with one question.
Oh, okay.
When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
Well, I grew up here. So I was born here. A lot of my childhood memories are here. I think of, walking on Nose Hill with the yellow grass. I think of the blue skies. I think of the mountains and the snow. Of course, snow is part of it. The Chinooks. I think a lot of the landscape. And I think of the people. The people have sort of held me and been part of my life. And, people I've played soccer with and, late at night in Confederation Park with our hair blowing in the wind. And, those moments that are just, before, I had a cell phone and could photograph them. They're sort of part of my inner memory. I think of my parents, coming here, coming west, starting their new life, bringing my sister and I here. Letting us start our own life here. Yeah. This is home, and this is where I came back to, whenever I would go away, I always wanted, this was home. To come back here was home. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Like I said, it's just, I really do like sitting down with artists because I love to understand how they think.
Good.
Because it's such a unique
Yeah.
way to go about it.
Yeah.
So thanks for your time.
Thank you.